The taste of sleep, the new sleep gummies were a game changer. They were small, round, and packed with a sweet, almost fruity taste. The kind of candy you could pop in your mouth without a second thought, almost like eating a gummy bear. I had been taking them for weeks now, just a handful before bed, and they worked wonders. The perfect way to wind down after a long day, to calm my racing mind and relax into the comforting embrace of sleep. No more tossing and turning, no more restless nights. Just peaceful, uninterrupted rest. At first I'd been cautious. A couple gummies, nothing more. But as the days went on, I found myself reaching for a handful, like I couldn't get enough of the comforting sensation they brought. A little indulgence. It wasn't like I'd ever overslept. I always set my alarm, always woke up on time for work, except for this morning. When my alarm rang, I didn't stir at first. I had always been the type to jump out of bed the moment it went off. But this morning something was off. The sound of the alarm seemed muffled, distant. I squinted through the haze of sleep, struggling to wake up. I reached over, fumbling for the snooze button, but the room was spinning a little. A deep sense of disorientation crawled over me. When I finally opened my eyes, I wasn't in my bed. I was on the floor. The cool, hard surface of the hardwood beneath me was a shock against my skin, my body aching from the awkward position I had woken up in. My limbs felt heavy, sluggish, like they were made of lead. I could feel my heartbeat thudding in my chest, and I pushed myself up slowly, trying to gather my bearings. Then I saw it. Right next to me on the floor was my wife's inhaler, the one she kept by her side in case of her asthma attacks. But she hadn't needed it for months now. She'd been fine. The doctor had cleared her, said the condition was under control, but it was there, lying on the floor beside me, just out of reach. My stomach twisted, an icy knot forming deep within me. My wife, where was she? I glanced toward the bed, but she wasn't there. I stood, my legs unsteady, trying to shake off the fog in my head. The room still felt off, like something wasn't quite right, like the world was moving in a way that didn't make sense. The heavy haze of sleep clung to me, and I stumbled toward the door, calling out her name. "Lena, are you okay?" Silence. No response. I pushed the door open, my heart racing as I stepped into the hallway. The house was eerily quiet, too quiet. I could feel the weight of something wrong pressing down on me, something I couldn't explain. The hallway stretched before me like an endless corridor, and as I moved down it, I saw the bathroom door slightly ajar. That's when I noticed it, the faint smell of something acrid in the air, almost like burning. I stepped closer, my pulse quickening. I pushed the bathroom door open, my breath catching in my throat. Lena was lying on the floor. Her face was pale, her lips slightly blue, her chest rising and falling in shallow, ragged breaths. The inhaler was still clutched in her hand, but it had been dropped, knocked aside during her struggle. I rushed to her side, my hands trembling as I checked for a pulse. Weak, but there. "Lena!" I shouted, shaking her gently, but she didn't respond. Panic surged through me, and I fumbled for my phone to call an ambulance. But as I dialed, a horrible realization hit me. The sleep gummies. I had taken them, just like I always did, a handful before bed. It had become a ritual. But now the pieces were falling into place. The dizziness, the disorientation, the heaviness in my limbs, the gummies. They had caused this. They had made me sleep too deeply, too long. I hadn't woken up when I should have, hadn't heard her struggling, hadn't heard her desperate gasp for air. I had been out of it, unaware, while she was in trouble, and I hadn't even noticed. The panic rose like bile in my throat. What had I done? Had my negligence caused this? Had I been so wrapped up in my own need for sleep that I'd failed to see the signs, failed to wake up in time to help her? I didn't know how long I'd been on the floor, or how long she'd been struggling. The minutes felt like hours, each second stretching longer than the last. And as I pressed the phone to my ear, waiting for the ambulance to pick up, I couldn't shake the sense that it was already too late. I had taken too many gummies. I had taken too much. And now the consequences were clear.